Guy Benson is the host of The Guy Benson Show on Fox News Radio and a Fox News contributor, and he joins me now to kind of dissect the Senate minority leader's words and what's happening here with the GOP, because the winds are shifting here and people want to know what is going on. So let's start with what McConnell said. I believe we have the soundbite. Let's listen to it and let's analyze.
There's probably a greater likelihood the House flips than the Senate. Senate races are just different. They're statewide. Candidate quality has a lot to do with the outcome.
Okay, so Guy, first of all, is it candidate quality? Is it something else? Is it lack of engagement? Is it what's going on with the former president, the chaos around him? I mean, what do you make of those comments? What do you think it is?
Aisha, good afternoon. Look, I think Mitch McConnell is a cool customer. He is not prone to hyperbole. And if you really dissect each word that he said in that soundbite, it's hard to quibble with the veracity and the analysis of what McConnell is putting out there. I don't think he's throwing in the towel. I think he's looking at the current situation, and there are some Senate races around the country where Republican nominees have suspect polling support at the moment, suspect fundraising numbers, and he's just saying that's a reflection of the snapshot reality right now. On the other side of this, though, and I think he would totally agree with this as well if you spoke to him, there are countless examples, Aisha, in recent election cycles where the polling position, especially of Republicans in races like this in August, were very poor reflections of where things ended up in October and then, of course, in November. And we are living through an election season where the Democrats should be in really big trouble just looking at the fundamentals of this race: presidential approval, the economy, inflation, right track, wrong track. It's a bad situation for the party in power. I'm not sure that's going to change between now and November, but we'll see, if these two issues collide, what he's concerned about, and then the fundamentals of the race, we're going to find out which one prevails in about 2.5 months.
Yeah, Guy, is there a Trump factor, though? Because some have said that in his comments that he kind of made a dig at the former president because of they are primarily Trump candidates in these states that could flip. And, of course, we know that Democrats have been spending millions of dollars in some of these races to try to prop up the Trump candidates because they find them to be easier targets in November. Do you think that's a factor?
It could be. And for the Democrats, sometimes it's be careful what you wish for. If this turns into a pretty big wave year, as I suspect it might, certainly on the House side, some people that the Democrats have been boosting cynically could end up in power. So, careful there. I think that all the precriminations about people winning or losing and whether they were backed by Trump or McConnell or not, it is insanely premature. We are in the doldrums of summer and August. If at some point we get the results of these elections and we're all sitting around talking about it and Republicans significantly underperformed in some races, then the recriminations might make some sense and we can have that conversation. I think doing that right now would be poor analysis, which is not to say there aren't some red flags for the Republicans that they might not be doing as well as they should be under these circumstances, but it's still early.
So I wonder if you're going to say that about what's happening in the House, too. If we can pop up this call for a new Fox News poll shows practically a dead heat now. We're looking at 41% to 41% in terms of where the House could land this November. And you can see over the course of the summer that margin has greatly diminished for the GOP. What do you make of that? What's happening there, Guy?
Well, point number one, if there is a tied electoral ballot, the generic ballot on Election Day, that almost always portends good things for Republicans. If they are not trailing substantially, that usually is good news for the GOP. So a tie, all else being equal, would almost certainly mean that the Republicans win back the House. I would also point out 41-41, we can all do the math. There are a lot of undecided voters in that universe. And if you dig a little deeper into the polling, the undecided voters heavily cut against President Biden, and they disapprove of him very strongly on balance. So if you want to get a sense of maybe where those supposedly undecided voters, maybe not dialed in quite yet, might break, especially among the late breakers, independents, moderates, I think we have a few clues. Those would still be good news. That would still be potentially good news for the GOP. Republicans shouldn't take anything for granted, but I think some of the doomsaying and bedwetting right now among certain Republican strategists, it's too much.
Okay. All right. Guy Benson, thank you for your 2 cents. We appreciate it as always.
You bet.
Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens, stories that are changing the world and changing your life. From Tucker Carlson tonight.